You're listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who, where we discuss everything about the hit BBC series, Doctor Who. And today we're discussing the Big Finish story, Stage Fright. I'm Dom Bettinelli, and joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hey, Father Cory.
How's it going?
And Jimmy Akin. Hey, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to follow The Secrets of Doctor Who in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, all the places, including your favorite podcast app, or join us on the StarQuest YouTube channel, where you can watch us and hit the bell to get notifications. I want to tell you about another show on the StarQuest network you are sure to enjoy called The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. You can find that wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/secrets. So before we get to our recap, just first off, what did you think of this part of the story? We're continuing the Sixth Doctor's last adventure. And this is the third installment of that. And just overall first impressions. Jimmy, what did you think?
Oh, before the recap. Okay. So I thought it was fine. The story's starting to come together. We have third act reveal of the main villain, and it connects up to what we've had in the previous two. I won't go into the details because that's what we do after the recap.
Yeah.
But I thought it was fine.
Father Cory, what'd you think?
It was enjoyable. You get to meet two characters that they've developed in, or three characters, excuse me, that they've developed in Big Finish before: Jago, Lightfoot, and Ellie. And I hadn't heard any of their stuff yet, so it was very interesting to kind of hear them. And they're a lot of fun. I can see why that they became popular enough to actually do a spin-off series kind of with them. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to some more of their stuff because it was a lot of fun. It was very entertaining characters, to say the least. But yeah, this was a good one. This one I wasn't as big. It was neat. I enjoyed this one, but it wasn't as much as the other two so far.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah, I think I'm on that same page. It was good. It was interesting getting the Villiard right from the top, all that sort of stuff. But it didn't have quite the interesting premises that the first two had. It was a little more conventional in that, which isn't bad. It just wasn't as unique as the other two. So that said, why don't we get into the recap? Jimmy, could you give us a recap of what we're talking about?
This week, the Sixth Doctor and Philippa, or Flip Jackson, are in Victorian London, where they meet up with theater owner Henry Gordon Jago and Professor George Lightfoot, who Dom doesn't know yet because they were first met by the Fourth Doctor in the TV adventure The Talons of Weng Chiang. Currently, Jago is taking time off from his theater, which he's rented out to a mysterious man for a private production that he is performing in private. Simultaneously, Lightfoot has been examining the bodies of people found around the city who have been inexplicably mummified, as if life was just drained out of them. The Doctor realizes that both of these are connected, and it turns out that the Villiard is the mysterious man who's rented the theater. He's been hiring actors to play the Doctor's former companions and help him reenact the moments of the Doctor's different deaths and regenerations. And at the dramatic climax, he uses Dr. Peyton's psychic extraction machine from the Red House to suck the life out of them. All of this has just been to lure the Sixth Doctor to him, because what he really wants is to get the Sixth Doctor really mad and use the psychic extractor to suck the Doctor's much more powerful energies to become stronger. At his final performance, the plan is working, and he's sucking the Doctor's negative emotions, but Flip overcomes her stage fright and says silly nursery rhymes to get the Doctor to calm down and stop feeding the Villiard. Then Jago and Lightfoot arrive with a mob of Londoners who are outraged by the recent deaths of all the actors, forcing the Villiard to flee. But once alone, the Villiard says to himself that this isn't over, that he got what he needed, and that by feeding on the Sixth Doctor's energies, he's now strong enough to win. The end.
Okay. So, yeah, and like we said, this is the third of 4 parts, so that presumably is going to be the fourth big, installment, the final confrontation between the Villiard and the Sixth Doctor. So so we've got Flip. We've had two other companions already. We've had Charlie and we had Miss Constance Clark, and now we have Flip. Who's Flip? Like, do we know her backstory a bit?
She's from 21st century London. She's from like the year 2012 or so, and she's got this higher pitched voice that's a little screechy or can be, and she's not that intelligent. She's not my favorite companion. I haven't heard a lot of Flip before, but she's not my favorite. She was better this time in listening to this. I mean, I've listened to this adventure before, but it's been years. In listening to this one again, you know, she wasn't, I didn't find her as grating as I remembered, but she's not my favorite. And they even talk about some of her character deficiencies in the show itself. So like there's at the climax of this episode, you know, the Valeyard is riled up the doctor's negative emotions, and the doctor is, you know, Flip is there at the theater, and the Valeyard could use his machine on her, and the doctor says, "Good luck with Flip. She hasn't an evil thought in her head." And the Valeyard says, "You might even dispense with the adjective." Meaning,
I remember that.
meaning drop the evil, and he could have said, "She hasn't a thought in her head."
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It's clear she's meant to be kind of a contemporary young woman who's, you know, into the popular media and stuff like that, because there's references to Harry Potter, references to UK's Got Talent or British Got Talent, whatever they call it. We call America's Got Talent, obviously, here in the US, but Victorian Got Talent. Things like that.
Yeah, she also likes Jar Jar Binks and things like that.
And that right there was evil right there.
She's kind of like Rose, only played for comic relief and comically not intelligent.
That was exactly what I was going to say. It came across as very much like Rose, like a shop girl from the council flats. You know, just like along that sort of class line. Yeah. So only not played for hot, sexy council flats girl who smarts. Right. So we have the Valeyard. We start off with him narrating, and at first it sounds like it's like a narration to the listener, but it's really he's setting up a scene that he's about to do with these actors. He's staging a play with three other actors, reenacting the fourth Doctor's death, the Tom Baker's fall from the high spot. The actors are playing Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan, and we get clues as to who they're supposed to be from the descriptions, and they don't, you know, come right out and tell us, which is nice. We pick it up, you know, since we're Doctor Who fans, we can pick these things up, including like the actress playing Nyssa wearing a velour outfit and that sort of thing. So
especially they're relying on us being Doctor Who fans because this is the missing regeneration story, the one we never got on television. And so that lets you have permission to assume your audience, the people who are actually going to buy this, are fans of regeneration stories. And so they're going to know the other regeneration stories and pick up on those references, since that's what they're here for, is to get the one they're missing.
Well, and it's interesting too, is, you know, we see the first, I guess, 4 regenerations, but nothing after. Even though this was recorded long, I mean, knew who was going on by the time this was recorded,
right?
You know, so they didn't do anything of the 7th to the 8th, or you know anything like that, 9th to the 10th.
Yeah, I think so. They did allude to the 5th Doctor's regeneration because in the opening 4th Doctor one, the actors have a hazy memory of, haven't we done this before, only it was different? Right. And they allude to the Doctor being poisoned on a previous rehearsal. And so that would be the 5th Doctor who got the spectrotoxemia. And so it looks like what the Valeyard's been doing, since he's luring the 6th Doctor, any companions from after whose bodies get found from after the 6th Doctor wouldn't mean anything to him. So he's just been rehearsing the deaths of the first 5 Doctors.
Correct.
And he seems to be counting down with a variation. In this he goes 5, which we don't see,
Mhm.
and then 4, 3, 1, and then ends up with 2. And so he seems to be counting backwards, except he's inverted the first 2, presumably because of the courtroom nature of the Valeyard's introduction, where he meets the Doctor when the Doctor is being put on trial, just like the second Doctor was put on trial. And so this is sort of his homage to that, is he wants to end with the courtroom drama.
I think it's interesting that, you know, these actors have been dying and their bodies being found, except these actors seem to have done 2 regeneration plays, the 5th and now the 4th, and with a memory loss.
But with one of them who died, because there was originally an actor named Johnny who was there, who's now been replaced by another actor. Right. And the Valeyard even like accidentally calls the new actor Johnny, and they remind him Johnny's not here anymore.
Yeah,
right.
He does say at some point that those who are hardier can handle, who have a stronger constitution, can handle more than one, and that's where Jago, it said that because of the alcohol and the steak and kidney pies that he's been eating have kept him from succumbing as strongly as others might have.
Yeah, Ellie also survives one.
Right.
Ellie, the barmaid.
Yes, because she's psychic, apparently, right? She has like strong psychic ability, which apparently comes up in other stories. I think I saw that in the TARDIS wiki.
Maybe I haven't listened to the Jago and Lightfoot adventures, but they did get their own series from Big Finish, and it is the same actors from the TV show. Although they're not producing them now because I believe it's the actor who plays Lightfoot passed on not so long ago, and so they finished the series. Right. They also have like Jago, Lightfoot, and Strax.
Oh, fun.
That could be fun. Speaking of Ellie, her voice will sound familiar for Classic Who fans. Lisa Bowerman, who plays Kara in the final episode of the 7th Doctor, Survival. She's one of the cat women.
People.
Oh, wow.
She's the one that befriends Ace in that one. So we haven't gotten there yet. That's actually we've got one. That's the only one we haven't recorded of the 7th Doctor, I believe, is Survival.
Yeah.
So when we finally get to that, Dom will get to hear that wonderful story.
Yes. So the Doctor and Flip show up, and they're here. It's 1890s London, and they're at the new Regency Theater, which apparently the Doctor already knows about because he's encountered Jago and Lightfoot before, like you mentioned, in the towns of Wang Chiang, and for a cultural education for Flip. So that is how he puts it. But when they get there, it's closed because the private thing, and so they go to find Jago and Lightfoot at the Red Lion Inn, which is apparently a location that would be known to people who've heard their stories before. And so Lightfoot's a pathologist, is that right, Professor Lightfoot?
Yes.
Okay, so he's got bodies in the morgue that are like dried out mummies, but they've only been dead a week, and so the Doctor is obviously interested in that. And they split up. So the Doctor goes with Lightfoot, Jago and Flip go to the theater. And when they get there, the Valeyard's got another play going, this time reenacting the 4th Doctor's death. So, because I think the first Doctor's death, I think. So I guess even then it's still inverted a little bit because it goes 4, 1, 3, 2, which is interesting.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And these are all he's passing these different deaths off as drafts of a play called Death of a Prydonian, which the Doctor explains is the house that he belongs to on Gallifrey, and Flip immediately compares that to like Hufflepuff and Slytherin.
That's right.
And so he changes the name of the play for the final performance to Death of the Doctor.
Yes. Which would have been an interesting title for this story. It's interesting that they went for, stage fright instead of Death of the Prydonian or Death of the Doctor, which would have been a little, I think.
It's only part 3. Can't have the death yet.
Well, I think that would be an interesting twist. Like, it's not, you think it's just the one, and then it's not.
That's a Stephen Moffat thing. the Doctor thing is a Stephen Moffat thing. He's trademarked that.
Yeah, Day of the Doctor, Night of the Doctor. One of the interesting, so the doctors with Lightfoot, and they're looking at the bodies that are dressed in costumes that look like Adric and Tegan's clothes. And we find out that the bodies were left near Baker Street, which the doctor says was an old address of his. Is this him, hinting that he might have been Sherlock Holmes?
No, they've done it. Madame Vastra is Sherlock Holmes. The Doctor has had a bunch of adventures in Big Finish in Victorian era London, and including different incarnations.
And presumably on Baker Street then. So, okay. Because it would be, I think it would still probably be a reference to the Doctor at least being near the Sherlock Holmes famous haunt, I would think. Because everyone would recognize Baker Street for that. You found a pendant with old Gallifreyan writing on it as a part of the lore, right? The Valeyard. I like the fact that the Valeyard's very thinly disguised alias, Timothy Yardvale.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
with picking up the name Timothy from part 1 of this box set. Yep. Who was, because you'll recall the Valeyard was disguised as Timothy, whatever his name was, in the train yard.
Right, that's right, that's right. And he invites Flip up on stage to join him, in the play. And this is where she begs off for stage fright. Like she just, I could never do dramas in school or whatever because I always got stage fright.
Even though Flip is remarkably unfearful in almost every other situation.
So the play gets staged. We have this, the first Doctor regeneration with Ben
and Polly.
Ben and Polly, yes. So I knew it was a B. Ben and Polly. The actors on stage are killed. They're drained, but Flip and Jago fall asleep. They're unconscious, so they're presumably far enough away from the action.
Yeah. They're also kind of hypnotized, and they comment on how moving and effective the play was, and don't seem to realize that the actors have been killed in front of them.
And the psychic machine, so it works off of emotion. It the more emotion, the more it drains. Is that the idea?
It seems to be that it needs to get up to a certain threshold of emotion, and then it can really do its extraction work. That because the Valeyard is like whipping people up into an emotional state and telling them he wants them to emote more, and then the machine seems to do its thing. So it's like there's a threshold that needs to get crossed emotionally. Incidentally, I found it interesting that even though they retained the gist of what happened at the Doctor's different deaths, the dialogue is different. Because I've got those scenes in memory, and I notice, that's not what they said in that episode. That's not the exact line. So he's kind of, for some reason, as a writing choice, they decided to not just copy and paste from those scripts. I'm not sure why. I mean, it could be a legal reason that they're not allowed to. It also could be meant to just be the Valeyard's memories are kind of fuzzy of the different times he regenerated as the Doctor. It also could be the Valeyard deliberate, or it could be a writing choice for another reason, which is to give the actors more to say that's more distinctive, so that because if you're watching the visuals on TV, you can see who's saying what.
Right.
And obviously if they've got like 3 actors there as the 3 companions, they all need to say something if you're going to justify their existence on the audio. So that could be part of why as well. But between that mix of factors, including the lack of visuals, it's notable to me that they changed the dialogue in the death scenes.
Well, I can't speak to the behind the scenes, whether or not it's a legal issue, which I'd be surprised for that. But the Valeyard does say at some point, I can't remember exactly how he puts it, but basically that as he's doing this, he's remembering more and more. So the fuzzy memory, and also, memory is notorious for being, remembering exact quotes for most people anyways, is notorious for not being an exact science, where, and especially when you're talking hundreds, if not thousands of years, in the case of the Doctor, it very easy to explain why they might not be exact quotes, especially in the most tragic moments of his lives.
Right, I mean, he is dead.
Yeah. Incidentally, they retconned the Valeyard's origin a little bit in this. He's still kind of a ambiguous, future, twisted version of the Doctor's darker sides. But they now say, instead of between his 12th and final regeneration, the Doctor says he's from between my penultimate and final regeneration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because in this scene, the Doctor has to explain regeneration to Flip. She apparently doesn't know about regenerations yet. And he talks about how, he's the dark side of who he is. And, of course, Flip compares it to Darth Vader and that sort of thing. But the Doctor also posits that the Valeyard might be from an alternate universe, an alternate version of him. Because in the first story of this set, we had the multiverse slamming together, and I think he's positing that maybe the Valeyard is him from one of these dark dimensions that he talked about.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting,
and I think that's kind of natural for the writers to throw up possibles for here's where what the Valeyard might be, or because no one wants to think the Doctor's really going to go bad one day.
Yeah, right. He does have a good line here with the Doctor's talking about the Valeyard being a future version of himself. I am my own worst enemy, which is quite literally so. So the Jago takes the Valeyard to the Red Lion Inn to do a casting call to get more actors, and that's where he convinces Jago and Ellie to be in the play for the third Doctor's death scene, playing the Brigadier and Sarah Jane. Mm-hmm. So, and meanwhile, the Doctor takes Flip to the Valeyard's costume shop. They kind of track him down there, which turns out to be the Valeyard's TARDIS. And so they get in there, and they arrive in the nick of time, as we mentioned before, to save Ellie and Jago from the machine. Ellie because of strong psychic abilities, and Jago's boozy red meat diet, apparently. So which is interesting.
Yeah. There's also another actor. So one of the actresses who died during the fourth Doctor regeneration at the beginning was a woman named Susie, who was Scottish. And her brother, Drew MacDonald, has come down from, I think he says Edinburgh. It's either Edinburgh or Glasgow.
He has Edinburgh.
And he's here also as an actor. He's passing himself off as an actor, but he's really here to look for her. And he gets recruited in a casting call as well. And he's going to end up playing Jamie at the final version. And so he's like, I don't know if he's already wearing a kilt, but he gets one on, and he's got the Scottish accent.
Yep. And Flip gets recruited as Zoe for the second Doctor's trial. And she gets caught, and she by the Valeyard, because she was chasing him, and he catches her and forces her to be in the play.
Oh, yeah. And that's a nice moment, too, because, they're having this confrontation. It's on stage, and the Valeyard, vanishes. And it's either the Doctor or Flip says, the stage just opened up and swallowed him. And Flip says, yeah, trapdoor. And then she jumps down the trapdoor to go chase him. The Doctor has something else he's got to do at the moment. He yells at her not to go, but she does anyway. And then we cut to the Valeyard in the darkness under the stage, and he's waiting for Flip because he remembers her jumping, and so he's going to lure her to where he wants her to be. And she's not coming. And he's like, Miss Jackson, do you need a little help? And he starts cackling malevolently to make noise so that she will find him.
Yep.
Right. And then he hypnotizes her. Which is one of the things that the Doctor has the ability to do. So we have this final reenactment that's going on at the costume shop. I think it's at the costume shop. I wasn't sure with the audio. And when the Doctor arrives,
the final one is at the theater.
It is. I didn't catch
it was the costume shop, because he ended up having two machines. He had the prototype that was at the theater, and then the one in his TARDIS. And the one in the theater got blown up.
Yeah, I think the costume shop and the theater may be very close to each other or something, because they have this line where Jago and Ellie are at the Red Lion, and you can hear the crowd in the background is riled up because Ellie's been telling them about the actors being killed, and they say, let's head over to the Regency.
Oh, actually, now I remember it's both. He takes his TARDIS and moves it back to the theater.
Okay, yeah.
And that's then when the final thing happens. So the costume shop went to the theater.
Gotcha.
So it was both.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I found that a little bit, that's the problems with audio is if it's not clear, they can get confusing. So when they show up, the doctor, when the doctor arrives, the Villiard reverses the polarity of the machine, of course. And that now it's absorbing the doctor's negative emotions, and in addition to absorbing negative emotions, I get the sense that it also enhances them. It prods them. It makes you feel these more, like it makes them bigger, so it sort of get this feedback loop where it's absorbing the emotions, but also inciting them as well.
Well, this is also the Sixth Doctor, where he's very bombastic when he gets incensed. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of emotion there to be able to pull from in the first place.
That's right. And so they're there. The Doctor's trying to deal with he's getting angry and indignant. And this is when the mob of angry actors arrives to exact justice on the Villiard for killing the other actors. And then we have this discussion between the Villiard and the Doctor about what is theater. And the Villiard says, theater is about truth, death, the revelation of oneself. And the Doctor says, no, theater is about joy, uniting people in a catharsis of morality, collective emotion and experience. There may be pain and grief, but it is a burden shared. What do you think? I mean, is it... I'm not sure I buy either.
I think this is typical theatrical writing about theater. It's self-referential on the part of the writers.
Yeah.
I also think that they both are, they both have elements of the truth in what they say about theater, but if push came to shove, I'd have to go with the Villiard on this one.
I was kind of leaning that way too. I think it's more about that.
At least there wasn't preaching to the audience and telling them why, they need to believe X, Y, and Z, and stuff like that.
And support your local community theater.
Yes. And your PBS station.
Yeah. So Flip ends up reciting nursery rhymes to distract the Doctor, and to kind of make him laugh, I guess.
And this is an interesting moment because Flip gets up on stage and she starts singing Ba Ba Black Sheep. And then when she finishes that, she goes into something else. She does several different nursery rhymes. Some of them she's kind of singing, some of them she's just reciting. And it is such a destroyer of the dramatic momentum of the scene.
Yeah.
Both, not just within the story diegetically, but non-diegetically. This is just, it brings the Big Finish production to a screeching halt. Which is the point. That's exactly what she's doing. She's breaking the drama so that the Doctor can reflect and calm down. And so it's interesting that we're getting it. I mean, it works on a kind of meta level. She's destroying the dramatic momentum of this, and by saying silly nursery rhymes badly.
Yeah.
And it also the effect in addition is to make the Doctor feel pride and joy in her because she's overcome her stage fright in order to stop the Villiard and help him. So I guess that's where we're getting stage fright. I felt that was a little much. I mean, it was a bit of a reach, that whole she's overcome her stage fright, that sort of thing.
I mean, they seed it early on, but it's kind of a minor thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit to hang the whole title on. You know what I mean? That the whole story name.
Well, and I mean, there's obviously two senses to the word stage fright. There's stage fright of being afraid of being on stage, and then there's being basically frightened to death.
Right on the stage,
as happens on the stage. So
it's true.
There's two senses to this meaning this title.
They're going for the pun. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So the conclusion is, the doctor, gives the morality, the moral of the story, that the doctor's strength is in his friends, while the Valeyard is all alone, and that's why he doesn't have the strength. I mean, this is a common theme throughout the doctor. The doctor and his friends always defeat the master who's alone, or the Valeyard who's alone, or whatnot. And the Valeyard escapes the mob, leaves the machine to explode, but he's never been so powerful and believes he can finally win, as you mentioned in the recap, Jimmy, which we'll presumably get next time. And meanwhile, the doctor is shaken and depressed for the Valeyard because that's his future, right? And I can imagine seeing future you being evil guy is sad. It's going to be depressing.
Well, it seemed to me too that they kind of referenced this, that he really isn't the future of the doctor so much as like a distillation of the evil of the doctor. So he's like a split off from the doctor.
Right.
So they kind of made it sound a little that it's clear cut of he is the doctor. He's just take the worst of the doctor and break it off. And that's who you get.
And this ambiguity goes back to Trial of a Time Lord, where in the original Robert Holmes draft, he's the future doctor. And John Nathan Turner didn't want it to be that unambiguous.
Okay. And then we get echoes of the black and white Guardian, and like we'd seen in the Fifth Doctor story Enlightenment we did recently, where Lightfoot is the one who says, well, dark cannot exist without light, and we must embrace the darkness to see the light, and
that's nonsense.
Yeah, it's very yin and yang sort of thing, but it's
Specifically, he says day cannot exist without night, and I'm going, yes, it can. You're on a tidally locked planet, especially a tidally locked planet in a dual solar system, and you're orbiting one of the suns. You can absolutely have day without night.
Right, they can keep going on.
Just get far enough away from the Earth so you're outside the gravity well and just point at the sun. You'll have perpetual daylight.
Or get far enough out, you'll have perpetual night.
Yeah. Or the North Pole in the summer, or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's right. Yeah, I mean, you don't need evil for good to exist. And I think that's the falsehood here is good is itself good. Evil is a privation of good, and so without evil, good can still exist.
Mm-hmm.
So we end with Jago thinking of staging a play about a man fighting his negative side, but Lightfoot tells him it's already been done. Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, and I was pleased that they finally did that because I'd been thinking Jekyll and Hyde all the way through this.
Right. Yes. In fact, apparently Jekyll and Hyde was somewhat contemporaneous. It was slightly before the 1890s.
Yeah, in fact, Lightfoot points it out. It's been done, and not just has it been done, it's been done recently on the stage. And he names a production of Jekyll and Hyde that had existed, I gather, in real history.
Right. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is the actual book title by Robert Louis Stevenson. That's right. So I was trying to think of that. So so that's where we end this story, right before we're going to, the penultimate story before the big finale. What did you think of this story? Any final notes on this story, Father Cory?
So I got a kick out of when the Doctor and Flip find the Valeyard's costume shop / TARDIS. It's filled with reproductions of the Doctor's coat. And Flip describes it as an explosion on a rainbow factory. Of course, she makes all little comments about his coat all the way through, but I thought that was a good line to describe it.
Right, especially considering in the last story it was Charlie commenting on the Doctor's fashion choices and him being defensive about it too.
Yeah.
Jimmy, how about you?
So I thought one aspect of this story that I thought was particularly nice was the creepiness of the Valeyard reenacting the Doctor's deaths, because he's planning to kill the Doctor. I mean, that's what we're building up to. And to have, as the penultimate chapter, to have him rehearsing the Doctor's deaths in anticipation of killing the Doctor. I mean, it would have been creepy at any time to have the Doctor stumble across someone rehearsing his deaths, all of them up to this point. But in the penultimate story where he's just about to regenerate next episode, coming across someone rehearsing all of his prior regenerations is especially creepy. And it seems to have an effect on the Valeyard himself. At one point, the Time Lord biology, I guess, is kind of fluid, and at one point he seems to partially change his own appearance when he's reenacting the First Doctor's regeneration. Flip is watching, and she's kind of hypnotized, but she says, "Is he changing? Is that a wig?" And so it's like he may actually be partially changing his form back and forth as he revisits these moments from his past.
Interesting. Yeah, Time Lord biology is kind of interesting. There's a lot that goes on that they don't explore a lot, at least in the visual medium. But yeah, we've had examples of that, like with the Metacrisis Doctor and that sort of stuff. So, and the 14th Doctor, which is a whole nother thing. So I guess that will do it for this time. We'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Doctor Who, including Stephanie D, Mark T, Theo V, Paul B, and Eric. Their generous tax-deductible donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Doctor Who and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. We'd also like to thank Victor Lambs, who edited this episode. So that's it from us. What did you think of Stage Fright, this Big Finish production? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com or the Secrets of Doctor Who Facebook page, or send an email to drwho@sqpn.com, or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. You can watch The Secrets of Doctor Who in full video on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/StarQuestMedia. And we'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the final part of the Sixth Doctor's last adventure, called The Brink of Death. Until then, Jimmy Akin, thank you for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Doctor Who.
Thanks, Dom.
Father Cory Sticha, thank you as well.
Thank you, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Doctor Who on StarQuest, and remember, I know death hath 10,000 several doors for men to take their exits.